3% Podcast, a bi-weekly podcast brought to you by Open Letter and 3%. This is Chad Post from Open Letter, and I'm joined as always by Tom Roberge of Riff Raff.
Hello, hello.
Doing well today?
Yeah.
Is it hot
I'm
there?
doing quite... It's not so bad yet. It gets cool at night, so it takes some time in the morning.
I feel like it's getting really steamy here today on my ride in. So we were going to, I don't know, do you have any banter that you wanted to talk about before we get into our main topic?
No, I'll save it for the end.
Yeah. Okay, you save it for the end. I guess all we were really going to talk about today is to make some recommendations and talk generally about Women in Translation Month, which runs throughout the whole of August. It was started by Madel, what is her last name? Redzinski. And I meant to look this up, what year she started it. In 2014 is when she started as a way of raising awareness of women in translation. We're hoping that she might be able to come on this podcast at some point in time as well to talk about it. But she started it in 2014 as a way of raising awareness for women whose books have been translated in English, because there is a huge disparity, something that we've chronicled through the translation database for years, that there's a huge disparity between the number of books that are translated, that are written by men and translated in English, and the ones written by women. And one point in time, back when I first did this, I want to say it was like a 30-point gap. Like, it was gigantic. And it's not nearly so much anymore, but nevertheless, there's still like an underrepresentation of female writers. And I've always found that for us anyways, like whenever we're doing books by women, there always seems to be like it's not intentional, but like the media and like the buzz machine tends to have like one book by a woman that gets a lot of attention, and a lot of other ones just go off the radar and just don't get any attention, which is really unfortunate. It seems like a bad part of our culture. So anyways, all this is a prelude to say that I thought we would spend today talking about recommendations of books by women in translation or anything else related to that topic. We are obviously Open Letter, like everyone else's, has a special going on this month in which we have every book of ours that's written by a woman or translated by a woman is 40% off if you use WIT month at checkout. So all those are tagged. All this month on the website, there are articles about new books by women in translation. There are also going to be charts of different infographics, I guess is what the cool word is. Infographics about women in translation. There'll be excerpts from 4 of our forthcoming books by women that nobody has seen yet. And I don't know what else. That's probably it. And we're doing the 2-month review about Monster Human by Kjersti Skonsvold, which is also a woman in translation, translated by a woman, and is a really amazing book. So a lot of stuff going on there, but it still seemed like a good time for the podcast to like do some audio recommendations instead of having to wade through my nonsense.
You said it, not me.
It's good nonsense, though. This week's one is very funny, and it has a really good idea in it. Anyway, so what are you guys doing at the store?
We don't do theme displays very often. We have so little space for display as it is that finding space for a special display for a short period of time is tricky. Also, we're constantly, the tables, at least the fiction table and what's on display in fiction, is half women in translation to begin with, because that's just what we saw a lot of. We did, however, coincidentally, on August 1st, announce that our fall book club's theme is, and I think it'll probably go beyond the fall, we just decided to treat it as the season's theme, is women in translation. And so we announced we did it in August because we wanted to give people time to read the book for September.
Ah, cool.
And it starts with Near to the Wild Heart by Clarice Lispector, translated from the Portuguese by Alison Intrican. Then we're doing Nothing But Dust, which came out, I think, this year, by Sandrine Collette's, translated from the French by Alison Anderson to Europe editions. It's kind of a Western, a slow, like methodical sort of Western from the French. The French love Westerns. They love Cormac McCarthy. So anything sort of in that vein. Then we're doing The Door by Magda Szabo, translated from the Hungarian by Lynn Ricks. This is now out from NYRB. I don't know who had done it originally way back in the day.
I don't think
Do you
that
remember?
it was only in the UK.
Oh, okay.
And I think it
Some
was
other
actually
edition.
like vintage in the
Okay,
UK.
maybe. And then last in December is Convenience Store Woman, which will be in paperback by
Oh
the
God, I
by.
was going to read that this month, and I opened it up. Sorry to everyone who's listening. I know a lot of people love this book. I opened that up and read 2 paragraphs. It's like fucking no,
Yeah, it
not
doesn't seem like
happening.
not my kind of thing either.
Oof.
That is by Sayaka Murata and translated from the Japanese by Jini Tapley Takamori. Apparently, this book made this author like an international superstar in Asia.
Yep.
She is like the biggest thing since sliced bread in the Japanese literary world. I had no idea.
You guys should have chose
Uh,
one of our Merce Rotoreda books. I'm
we
gonna
are
just
not.
ride you now. Now that I see that you have the New York Review of Books, New Directions book, fucking Grove book. Come on, man. Can't you throw us a bone? You're on our podcast.
You give me 2 fucking seconds to explain myself. We don't choose the books. The people who facilitate the meetings choose them. So
so
I will
they're
make
so
suggestions.
those people should do better. I'm just kidding.
Like I said, we're probably going to continue this at least through the end of next spring. So that's another 6 books that'll likely be.
Just wait until
Uh,
I'll send you guys the early galley of 4x4, and you can give it to someone after you read it, and they will choose it for your club.
um, as you can tell, most of these things are not. Well, I guess they are new. Yeah, a mix here. Okay. Um, all right. That was our effort for the store in that regard. Like I said, we're not. There's no display up. I don't know that Emma. Also, I mean, Emma was gone all of July, so I've been doing everything by myself. Finding, finding time to order books and set up a display was tricky for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe she'll do something. She's at the store right now. We'll see.
There you go. So you want to make some recommendations?
Yeah, with the
Stuff?
caveat that this is hard because I haven't read any of these books yet. I've been reading. This is not a woman in translation, but I got a copy of the new Manchette that's coming out at the end of the month.
I got that too. I was going to ask if you had finished it, because I wondered about that. I was going to bring that up at the end.
Yeah, no, I'm reading it now, and then I'm concurrently reading a book, a nonfiction book called Shark Surfer's Death, which is from, I believe, a British publisher and is about like sharks in popular culture as related to shark attacks and things like that,
Nice.
which I find fascinating. Yeah.
I'm going to slowly, like, as this podcast goes on, I'll probably get worse and worse, but I have 1 week, 5 days to proof the entirety of the dreamed part because of how it had to get edited. The galley had to be edited and relayed out because of the number of changes that went into it. So someone has to go through it very carefully. So I have to read 100 pages a day of that proofing. So that's all I can think about. Like, period. It's a lot. I don't know if anyone out there has ever proofed a book like where you know that if you make a mistake, that mistake is going to be there forever. But it's a little stressful and like trying to go through and check every single spelling, every single foreign word, every term, and just stay focused on it. And that book is dense and giant. So every day I have to leave at 1 and just go somewhere and read for like 6 hours.
So I have 6 books here. You probably have some of these same books, at least
Okay.
probably a couple, I'm guessing, that are things that I thought looked interesting that are women in translation. Mine are all they're either from July, August, or September. So I wanted to keep
So
it
you're looking forward. Okay.
limited. Just, how many more times can I recommend Tentacle or, something along those lines? Like I wanted to find some new stuff to recommend.
Okay. You
So,
can go first.
Want to go first? Or
Yeah, you
should
go
I?
first. You go first.
All right. So out today, which I didn't realize.
I
it
know
was
what this book
because
is.
We had already had it. We're recording this on Tuesday, August 5th. But we had it last week. Is The Remainder by Alia Trabuco Zeran, translated by Sophie Hughes, published by Coffee House Press.
And other stories.
Huh?
And other stories.
Oh, in the UK, sure. Chilean author, and this has been getting a lot of good attention. I have not. I truthfully don't pay attention to like the New York Times book review or anything anymore, but um, I've not yet seen like a huge media hit. Just a lot of you know
Well,
the
it was a Man Booker on the long list for the Man Booker International. I think really set that off too.
right.
I read it. I wrote about it on Monday. Y'all can see that it's not for me.
Interesting. Okay, go ahead.
I like books that are more complicated and ask a little bit more of the reader. So it's fine. People are gonna really like it, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. You know what book I did read and love is The Promise by Silvina Ocampo. That book is legit awesome, and it's translated by Suzanne Joe Levine, and it's not in front of me. Is it Jessica Powell? I believe it's Jessica Powell. And that book is wild. So like the setup is that this woman is on a transatlantic ship. She falls off by accident, and the ship leaves, and so she's floating in the water, and she promises herself to like think to stay alive by thinking through all these memories of that she's had over her whole life, and that if she lives, she'll write these all down. And so it's like this kind of looping, digressive storytelling experience, and it's absolutely brilliant. She's a brilliant writer. It's top notch, and it's from City Lights, and I think that it comes out in September. But that's a book that
October.
I would highly recommend.
Comes out in October.
Is it October? And their galley says September 17th, but I haven't updated anything either. So
I mean, the City Lights website says October 22nd.
yeah,
so,
they probably bumped it.
yeah, it happens. I don't think I've gotten this galley yet, which is weird. They usually send us everything. It's probably sitting in a package at the store right now.
It's very thin. Like it's very thin. And there's two of them. There's that, and then they're doing a book of the short stories, but it's one that those stories have existed before in English. And I can't think of what it's called right now.
I just saw it on the page here. Forgotten Journey?
Yes, Forgotten Journey. Yes, yeah. So those two are coming out. I thought they were coming out at the same time, but who knows?
Let's see. She's a poet as well, correct?
She's mostly known as a short story writer.
Oh,
She was like the big short story collection that New York Review of Books did a few years ago, which was a reprint, I believe, of that from years before. But it's mostly short stories. And she was like involved with all like the Bioy Casares and Borges and all those people, but she's always overlooked because she is not Borges and Adolfo Bioy Casares. So for all like the normal gendered reasons, I don't think that she's gotten as much play as she has ever deserved.
She died in
Like 93, right?
Look, I'm trying to find. Yes, 93.
Yeah, she lived
Born
90 years.
90 years. Yeah. So she saw it all. Jesus.
Yeah. And she was one of the editors and founders of Sur, the major Argentine journal. I mean, she was, I say that she was involved with Bioy Casares, I should clarify. She was married to him. Like they were just like friends. But he obviously, like, I think that more people know his work than hers, which is unfortunate. They're very different. She's very sharp and incisive. She's great. She's really great.
I'm looking forward to this. Hopefully I get a copy soon. What else do I have here? So Emma wanted me to mention that Anne Sayre, who had The Governesses last year from New Directions, they're publishing another one called The Fool and Other Moral Tales. This comes out in September. I don't know if Emma's read it yet, but she absolutely loved The Governesses.
Yeah, so did I.
And everyone that we've sold it to, they all come back to the store and they're like, "Oh my God, that was amazing!" Like, yeah, it's a hit with everybody. So look forward to that.
The one that I'm looking forward to, I haven't gotten yet either. And it's weird because I have like a mixed thing with this author, but is Yoko Ogawa's Memory Police, translated by Steven Snyder and coming out from Pantheon. I think this comes out in September, although I'm going to check right now. I've read all of her books because I really like Steven Snyder. It comes out in August. I really like Steven Snyder, and he always recommended her. And so I read her from the beginning. And I think the first book was called diving something. And I didn't like it much at all. Like I wrote a review of it and just like, I don't like this. And then I read the next one, the mad professor and the housekeeper or something like that. I didn't like that one either. And then I wanted to talk to Steven for my class. So I read Revenge by her, and Revenge is fucking phenomenal. The Diving Pool is the first one, 3 novellas, and then The Housekeeper and the Professor is the second. And Revenge is like these 11 tales that sort of like overlap each other and refer to each other and become like an almost metafictional like game of sorts. And they're all like kind of dark and scary in various like psychological ways. And that book is really great. So the Memory Police one is coming out. I'm actually looking forward to, because I think that it's more in that vein, because it's more of like a Orwellian novel, surveillance, things like that. And that seems to be the sort of Ogawa that I like, not the like emotional, traditional storytelling sort of Yoko Ogawa writing.
Wait, so which one is the new one?
The Memory Police.
I'm not seeing that one here.
It
There's
comes
got a
out.
lot.
It comes out
Oh,
in August from Pantheon.
Memory Police. It's a good title.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
I'm down.
Oh, it's a good cover too.
Yep.
Well, if that's the right cover.
Is
That
the
is a
one with
really,
the face?
yeah. That's a great cover.
It's not it's dissimilar enough, but it's the cover for 4x4 that I think we're going with is that reminds me of, which I'd recommend that book too. But that book won't be out for a while, guys. Sorry, it won't be out till April.
All right. So this is the top of my to read list after I get done with Nada and do I have something else? No, I'm going to read this. It's called Will and Testament. It's
I was
coming
going to
out.
ask if you were going to read that. I've read this when I was on vacation.
Did you like it?
I read half of it, to be honest. Yes and no. I like things about it, and I think if I read the whole thing, I think I would get more out of it. There's a lot of redundancy in the beginning where they're talking about this giving away of the houses and their inheritance, and it's like it uses the same sort of phrasing so many times that there's a point where it's like, okay, I don't want to read any more about this. But the parts that were about her having an affair, I really liked. So
Uh,
yeah, I recommend it for sure.
yeah. So this is, to be clear, Will and Testament by Vigdis. How would you say that?
I
Horth?
think it's Hjorth. I don't know.
Okay.
And I think Vigdis
H-J,
might be wrong too.
Hjorth. This is from Verso, Norwegian author. She sold 150,000 copies in Norway, which is quite a feat. It was like, it's listed here as being a controversial bestseller.
I can explain that too.
What, the controversial part,
So
or
yeah, so there's a bonus episode in which I talked to Jan Erik Riley, who's the editor at Kapellendam, which is the publisher of this book. And I actually have my copy here that I have in front of me has a note from the rights director at Kapellendam who wants me to read it because it's a big milestone in Norwegian literature. And part of it was that became an obsession in Norway with identifying who is being talked about in these books and that they're all like quasi autobiographical. And so this one got treated in that way too, as being this quasi autobiographical, like salaciously telling details about people's lives and things like that in a Knausgard sort of way. And that was like, I think what fueled a lot of the sales in that quote unquote controversy.
interesting? That's
Right.
pretty, I gotta say.
I don't know that it's like one of those things where it's like, that's kind of interesting because I don't know that that's a controversy that can be replicated in translation.
Oh, clearly no.
Yeah.
But I mean,
But the book
most
is good. The book is good.
most of phenomenon books in other countries do not become phenomenons in English. It just doesn't work that way. Especially if it's something so incredibly tied to the culture that it came from,
Yeah.
right?
But it's cool. It's a cool cover, and it's cool that Verso is doing it. And I second your recommendation. I had that out here to recommend.
Okay. All right, it's your pick. You still want?
What should I pick? I have this list of everything that I'm reading this month for Women in Translation, but it's like out of my reach. One of the books I know I'm going to read, even though I've got like mixed feelings too. So Olga Tokarczuk's new book, Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead, I believe is the one that we considered this years ago. I wanted to publish it in Antonio Lloyd Jones's translation. At that point in time, we had an editorial committee. Editorial committee said they didn't like it. Life goes on, things happen. I believe that this is the one that is the basis for the movie that was made about hunting and poaching, and it was called, what the hell is the name of it?
Hunting? No.
Hold on.
Oh no, different movie.
Where is the name of the movie? I'll find it eventually. I might be wrong. I might be mixing up if this is the basis for the movie or not. Um, the yeah. No, it is. Okay, so the description is it's written in the convention of a detective story with the main character telling the story from her point of view. Janina Dzistra, an old woman eccentric in her perception of other humans through astrology, relates a series of deaths in a rural area of Kladzo, Poland. She explains the death as caused by wild animals and vengeance on hunters. And I believe they made a movie based on this that they showed. Yeah, it's the basis of the crime film Spoor, Spoor, and they showed it at the Conrad Festival, and I was there in Poland a couple of years ago in 2017, and I met her, and she did a question and answer afterwards, and like talked about the book, and it sounded really interesting. And I really like Antonia Lloyd-Jones. I'm not big on flights. Of all the ones I've read samples of, like I've read all of the books that have been translated and samples of like 3 other books of hers, and Flights is my least favorite, so I'm looking forward to reading the full translation of this one.
Yeah, that was on my pile here as well. Don't know that I'll read it. Emma had mixed feelings about Flights as well.
Yeah.
So
it's complicated.
Yeah, she just, I don't know. I think she thought it just could have been trimmed or something like that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, very much. Yeah. Very much.
Is that a wolf? Is hunting wolves a feature of this movie?
I believe so. I didn't see it because it wasn't subtitled, and they're like, guys can sit and watch it if you want to, but it's just going to be all in Polish. I'm like, no, right. I'm good. Let's go get some vodka. Yeah. Forget this.
Oh, they don't kill wolves.
Yeah, I think they might. But yeah, so I'm going to read that for this month too, and write something about that.
All right. So the last one I have here that I'm just going to mention the title, and you can talk about it because you know a lot more about it than I do. History, a mess.
I was going to see if we could mention that, or I had mentioned that. That just came out, I don't know, like last week. So Sigrun Pálsdóttir is an Icelandic author whose husband happens to be Bragi Olafsson, who we also publish. And this book is about a woman who's doing research for a PhD in like art history, and has been sort of directed by her advisor into looking into a particular set of like what's a notebook is the word I want to use, but like a diary from this one artist. And she finds something that makes it clear that this artist was actually a female and not a male, and it would revolutionize the way that you thought about like people who were artists at that point in time, and like how they were sponsored and various other things. And she writes her whole, you don't see this part, but she's written her whole dissertation, like 600-page dissertation on this one fact and how it alters the way that people think about stuff, blah, 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 blah. Then she finds out that she made a mistake and that there are 2 diary entries and 2 pages, and she missed it, and she just misread it, and she was wrong. And so there becomes like a book in which she's breaking down, not telling anyone about this, knowing that if she turns in this dissertation and it does well for her, which it should, and helps her launch her career, it's all based on like this false premise. But she doesn't want to tell anyone because that's not going to help her at all anyways. So it's like this tension. It's like a weird academic tension, but it also involves her like hallucinating and slowly losing her mind. And it's pretty wild. It's fun. It's a kind of dark book, but it's fun. It's really good.
Cool. Good.
What do I
Do you have any more?
There's ones that I see on here. I'm looking through. So I ran a list of all the fiction books by women that are in the database at this moment, which is incomplete because if I could show a picture, there's a stack of things next to me that I have to enter. But I was flipping through here to see like what else we might have missed. I have 118 listed here right now. And I know that the other ones that I wanted to read aren't on here because 2 of them are reprints from New Directions. The Natalia Ginsburg book, which I can't remember the name of, and then Melina by Bachman. And I've read that a long, long time ago, but I want to reread both of those for later this month as well, just as 2 books that have been reissued and are, getting Twitter love, and are classic. Because I feel like I'm more into more classic things right now than more contemporary stuff. So I'm going to read both of those, but they aren't actually on this list that I have in front of me because the list is only books that have never come out or have never been published before. other than that, I don't know. I always want to recommend, and this is going back, I've recommended her before, but I want to recommend Catherine Leroux, the Quebec author. She has 2 books out in English, Madame Victoria, and then, oh God, what is the other one called? The Party, the Wall Party, the Party Wall? What is it? And she is spectacularly good. I really like her, and I can't wait for the Party Wall. I can't wait for her next book to come out, which I guess I had it described to me by the publisher Biblioasis, and it sounds absolutely wonderful. But I think she's really talented, really good, and there's not a lot of attention for these Quebec books. So I feel like it's okay to plug that one last time.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I keep meaning to read her. I just, you know how it is.
There's a lot of stuff.
There's a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff.
Have you read This Girl at the Door by Veronica Ramo?
I don't even know what that is.
Okay. I was curious about that, but I don't think I'm going to have time to read it. But it's about like, I think it's referred to on the back as like a book for the Me Too moment. Something to that effect. But like the basic description is that there's, this woman has an affair with this, it's called the first post-Weinstein novel by Vanity Fair Italy.
Oh, yes. I remember we did get this galley. So I remember that tagline being on there, and I was like, what is this?
That's exactly why I wanted to read it, see like what's going on here. But apparently like this woman meets an attractive man, leaves her country to be with him. A few months later, newly pregnant, just beginning to feel comfortable. A girl arrives at the door talking about this drawn out and violent affair she's had with a professor, who's the father of this woman's unborn child. And it has different perspectives. So it seems like very of the moment and like something that might be really interesting and probably like a quick book to read. But I don't know that I'm going to get to it.
Yeah.
There's only so much time.
So this is originally published in the UK.
I believe so.
I'm seeing a lot of UK reviews here.
Okay. I don't know by whom though.
Fourth Estate?
Oh, okay. Publisher? Okay. Yep.
And then there's this weirdo Grove cover that is much better than the Fourth Estate cover.
Oh, really?
Yeah, much, much better. The Fourth Estate one is just like brown mud. This one is got the weird cactus.
Yeah, the cactus thing.
Mesa with no, like a tile floor. So it's weird. It's a pretty good cover, I gotta say. That's that. I have so much, like, I have the new Crash and Horkai to read.
Whoa, wait a second. The cover of The Girl at the Door that I found for the UK version is just a belly button.
Oh, is that what it is? I couldn't quite...
Yeah.
The photo I saw was like someone holding the book, and it just looked like brown. So she's tan. Yes.
I mean, it's just skin with like a belly button in the middle.
Cool.
I realized, like, I don't think that's mud.
Mud. No, I meant like the color.
I know.
I have to read Mark's book still, Mark Haber, because he's coming to an event. I have to interview him. Hit that and Crash and Horkai back to back will be interesting.
Are you having Crash and Horkai, or you're reading?
No, I feel like I should. Somebody's got to read it, and obviously it's more my speed than Emma's. So
yeah, I'm waiting for the final version to come in. The other thing I'm waiting for is that Ducks Newburyport book, but that's not in translation. Those two are like my fall.
Yeah. Can I be honest? I don't quite understand what all the hype is about this book.
Ducks Newburyport?
Yeah.
Anytime that there's a woman ranting and being aggressive and long-winded and, more JR-like or Gaddis-like in terms of, not following normal conventions of speech patterns or like doing that, I think it usually gets pushed aside. But I think in this case, they've made so much of a deal out of it that I think people are paying attention. But it looks like it's very funny and aggressive and angry, and that all sounds like fun. That sounds like a good time to me.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know anything about the book, and I just saw that, like, it's one of those things where, like, what it's about has been completely lost in the hyping of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, here's their description. This description is from the UK one and sort of makes sense. Latticing one cherry pie after another, an Ohio housewife tries to bridge the gaps between reality and the torrent of meaningless info that is the United States of America. She worries about her children, her dead parents, African elephants, the bedroom rituals of happy couples, weapons of mass destruction, and how to hatch an abandoned wood pigeon egg. Is there some trick to surviving survivalists, school shootings, medical debts, Franks and Beans, a scorching indictment of America's barbarity, past and present, and a lament for the way we are sleepwalking into environmental disaster? Ducks Newburyport is a heresy, a wonder, and a revolution in the novel.
That all sounds great.
Yeah, it's one of those that when I first saw and first read about it, I was like, if this were like, yeah, it got a star review and published as weekly, that this is a book that could do really, really well. But it's also fucking 1,000 pages long.
It is a very long, very large trim as well. But
yes. So
it's going to be a tough sell.
It's going to be a tough sell. And I know that Biblioasis is banking a lot on it, because just think about printing this thing, man.
Oh, God.
That's why we're doing it for the 2-month review. That's why we're going to try and like promote it, because I just feel morally obliged. I feel like this is a book that should take off, but like I can also see that vision. I can have that. I can see a pathway to where it gets ignored because it's too big. It's by someone nobody knows. It's one of those sort of, it could fall through the cracks. I can see a world in which that happens, and I don't want that world to be the world I live in.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So I'll do my little part.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely ordered it for the store. Like I said, it's just, it's one of these things that, I don't know. I hope all this fervor for it doesn't die out by the time the book actually comes out.
When does it actually come out? September.
It's just
September.
Okay. Yeah, for some reason I thought it was already out. It's just there's so many people talking about it. But I guess that's bookseller Twitter, which is, everything is, 3 months in advance.
Yep.
Kind of.
Yep. They're also like, they did it at Winter Institute.
Oh, which I missed.
And so I think a lot of the people, they got the galleys out there at Winter Institute back in January, I guess when it was, so that people had time, because it is so long.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And the fact that there's an additional couple hundred pages that aren't even in that galley is wild.
Yeah,
it's like proofing, I don't know, like a Rodrigo Frezan book in which there's new stuff that just gets added. make sure it's all there. Like rereading The Dream Part is blowing my mind. Now that I know the structure of it and like what it is, reading it, going back through, it's like one of those things where it's like, oh my God, this all opens up. It's also intricately structured, but you can't see that the first time by any means.
Yeah, that's interesting. Huh.
Books do that. Especially when they're not just solely A to B to C to D. And it's one of those things that like I always want people to go back. It's like I feel like the only way we ever really get to understanding these books is by talking about them, or and that it's in that writing about them for me. Like writing about them or talking about them, that then I start to understand a larger, like, lot more about them than just reading and being like, yeah, that's cool, I get that. If I don't write about it or talk about it, then it doesn't coalesce in all those various ways. Like there has to be some other action with it, and I think that's really important to me.
It's funny. I read, I don't know, I got about halfway through and had to put it down. The Javier Marias, the Berta Isla. And of course, the whole time I'm reading it, because you know what it is, right? Like it's the wife of the Your Face Tomorrow trilogy, right? So, which of course it starts like when they met in high school, right? And so it sort of traces his career, but from the outside. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? From her point of view, which of course, the entire time that he's a fucking spy, right? And she just doesn't, right? And it's explained that, he could never talk about work, and here's why, and blah, blah, blah. And there are reasons for it. And of course, what's going on as a reader. It's so interesting to think back about the way it all plays out in that trilogy, but seen through this lens, I think is really interesting.
Right.
Because it makes you think about it all over again. And it's not like, those books are fairly straightforward, but they do have things happen. These are not the quietest of Javier Maria's books where like literally there's one point of action and 300 pages written talking about and thinking about that action.
Yeah.
Those actually have some action in them. Anyway, yeah, no, you're right. It's sometimes it does require a certain distance and like vocalized or at least written sort of analysis of things. I find it like I don't write many reviews or anything like that, but when I do write about books to other people, even if or talk to books like as I recommend them, I realize there are things about them that I read, appreciated in the moment, and then completely forgot about.
Yeah.
By the time I was finished with the book. Like I was just talking about Insurrecto with a customer who came in and he wanted something special for his father, who's like really into film and like a film buff or whatever, but he wanted a novel that was just sort of in the film world. And so I recommended Insurrecto and explained it to him. And he came back in a few days later. So my dad was so excited. He's reading it now. He just loved the premise or whatever. And he said, you didn't even mention the fact that, the woman's sort of obsession is all based on her father. Right. And I was like, oh, like, I mean, yes, but like, I didn't even remember that was a key part. And he was this guy's father found that really fascinating because of like his own relationship with his own parents and all that sort of stuff. It's like the stuff you just forget and that you should use as selling,
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I forget a lot of things. One thing I forgot to mention this, which is important. So, Madel Radzinski, we mentioned at the top of this as the person who created Women in Translation Month and really spread the word and made it happen, is trying to come up with a list of the 100 best women in translation. So she's accepting deadlines of up to 10, or she's accepting deadlines. She's accepting nominations, up to 10 nominations per person before August 25th of this month. And the nominations can be tweeted, DM'd, PM'd, emailed, come to Don, or whatever, and sent to at the Twitter hashtag or Twitter handle at read_WIT or at BIBLIBIO, which is her personal one, or on any platform, like wherever you do it. So anything that's in book format is eligible: novels, nonfiction, poetry, plays, no genre limitations. Authors could be living or dead. Only the top 2 titles per author nominated will be included. All the works by women written in languages other than English are eligible, whether or not they've been translated into other languages. And so they're going to she's trying to put together a list of 100 books for the end of this month. So if you're listening to this and you want to weigh in, send her some nominations. I'll link to that too.
So it's individual books?
Yes.
Because 100 best women in translation sounds like you're ranking women.
Sorry, the full title is it's hashtag 100 best WIT, but the goal is to compile a list of the 100 best books by women writers in translation.
Got it. Okay.
I just read the hashtag because that's easier.
Sure. Right. They're not going to change it. Should we just give this to Ferrante now? I don't feel how.
Well, I mean, she'll be one of the 100 for sure. But there's only 2 books from each author, so she could have 2 books on there.
Okay. But I think she'll probably have the number 1. So she's not actually ranking them?
I don't think she's ranking them. I mean, she doesn't say that she's ranking them. I think she's just compiling a list.
If it's 100 best.
Yeah, but 100 best, but you don't need to, that doesn't have to be then 1
These
to 100.
Are better than all others.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, okay.
Yeah, which will still, like, be argument-causing or dismaying in various ways, but whatever. Good on her. Make it a thing. I like it.
Yeah.
See, maybe she'll come on here to unveil it. That would be fun.
I don't know if we're recording yet or whatever. Do you have any statistics that you think are interesting?
You want me to run something? Okay, so I was what's that?
What about last year compared to whatever the 10 years before? Anything along those lines?
Let's do female fiction in 2018. There were 177 titles.
Out of how many?
Out of, for fiction 2018 for all is 533.
Oh, good Lord. That's still not very good, is it?
Nope. Some of those are going to be considered to be written by both because they're anthologies. So there's a certain subset that doesn't get included. Another way to do this. So that's a bad ratio. I said 177 first, right?
Yeah.
That'd be 177 divided by 533 means that 33% of the books from last year were by women. Let's look at 2017 though. 2017 had a total of 520 fiction books, And for women, I'll check it. It is 154. So a little bit lower. It was only 29.6% that year. So one of the things, another way to do this, or the statistics, is I'm going to put up a new chart. The first infographic that I was going to make for tomorrow is the rolling percentages of women in translation from 2008 through 2018. Because 2019, or in 2019, because it's percentages, but 2019 is not complete, obviously. But I can just have the percentages so we can see where it maps against men. And then I was going to do it based on like break it down by publisher, break it down by region. And I don't know what else. Like what other things would be interesting infographics about women in translation?
Where they're from?
That's region.
Region, okay.
I did one yesterday on because I wrote about 2 Spanish books in translation, and I ran it for all Spanish books by women that are translated from Spanish and published in English, which country they're from. And do you want to guess what the biggest one was?
Spanish-speaking women in translation?
Yep.
Biggest. You're saying, I mean, the obvious would be Mexico, no?
Mexico's 3.
3?
Mm-hmm.
Argentina?
Argentina's 1.
Argentina, Spain.
Spain is 2.
Yep.
Mexico's 3, and then Chile is like half of Mexico.
Interesting.
So it falls off, and then there's like Cuba, Uruguay's down, Costa Rica, and then it hits basically where it's like 2 books from like a bunch of different little countries, and very underrepresented Central America as usual.
Sure. I would be curious to know if there are any individual countries where more books by women are translated than books by men.
So I did that once. It takes forever to put together the spreadsheet on that because you have to go, because you have to do it country by country, right? So it's like, there's the way to do it is there's no easy, I can't figure out how to write the script to make that fast, okay? But I did that once before, and it's on the computer that's been stolen, and that I know where it is now. I know where my keys are anyways in Albuquerque, but I don't have my computer back. And so that whole spreadsheet was there. But the thing was, there were no countries that were really even close unless it was a big difference of unless it was a country in which there was like 3 books published by a woman and 1 by a man. But when you got into like the countries that had a lot of them, like anything that had like, an average of 10 translations a year, there was always misbalanced.
Interesting.
But I could run that. Anything that's more than 10 a year for those, so more than 100 books over the past 10 years, any country that has more than 100 titles, I'll look at those ones. I could put that chart together pretty easily. But to do whatever it is, 154 countries is fucking insufferably long with this much data.
Sure. So it would be France and Germany and
Japan, Sweden. Russia, Norway. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Argentina, Spain.
If any countries are approaching equality.
Yeah. I'll put that one up later this month too.
All right. So one last question, and feel free to answer this in any one of a million different ways, because there's a lot to unpack here that we're not going to have time to do today. And I would be curious to hear from somebody who does this sort of thing. Just a agent, I guess, not an agent, like a foreign rights person. Mm-hmm. Skeptic, I guess, would be the right person to talk to. Anyway, if there's what your general perception is over the last few years as women in translation has become more and more widely known to readers, to publishing people, to booksellers, if you've noticed any marked change in the way that either foreign agents or right people or editors themselves sort of present materials to you.
That's interesting. I think what has sort of changed is that there is an awareness that there's a market for doing books by women generally, not just in translation, but generally, that there's a lot of those books are kind of getting traction, taking off, that there's a lot more interest in that than a typical white male book, right?
Okay.
And I think that for people who are doing books in translation, because you're already initially like doing a lot of translations was sort of like exploiting a market inefficiency because no one else was doing it. You could find these great books. You could do them that cheaper than they would be if they're written in English. There's lots of like advantages that were there that are no longer really advantages because the market is corrected, for lack of a better term, and that there's so many people who are interested in these books, and the agents know how to like play them, that people are bidding on the same books and blah, 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 blah. So like the inefficiencies aren't there anymore, except where maybe it comes to female authors. And I think that there's certain types of certain publishers that I know, and certain just general in the world, people are thinking that it's possible that this sort of idea that people are paying a lot more attention to books by women could play out here too. And that rather than like looking for the next Knausgaard, you're looking for the next Bronte, or you're looking for the next like female voice that's unique and can land with an American audience that sort of seems more in tune with wanting something that's more savvy in like a gendered way. So I think that it's starting to shift, like generally, like we've been doing these women series for a while, like the Danish women writers series, the South Korean one. There's another one that I'm forgetting right now. I don't know why, but we've been trying to do that for a while, and with mixed results in terms of sales. But like it has helped a lot of ways. I think the books that take off seem to take off a lot better. I mean, our best-selling author is a female. That's one book that I would recommend. It doesn't come out until January, I guess. But Garden by the Sea by Merce Rodoreda. We have galleys. You'll be getting one soon. This book phenomenally good. It's not one of her scary ones. It's one of her like more traditional, like classic Fitzgerald-y sort of books. And but I think there's more interest in looking for those voices because those voices feel more unique and fresh and of the moment. And so I think that there's a shift in that.
So they're reacting to the market as opposed to actively.
I'm certain that there's some active too of like we really need to be doing more women in translation.
Right.
There's some of that for sure, but like, there's one thing between saying that and another being like, well, there's good reason to because we have potential to do X, Y, or Z. So I think it's both of those.
Right, and that's not unlike the sort of way it's been, the way it's sort of worked. The evidence that it's working and that it's worth a thing worth pursuing and addressing the change is not just like the moral rightness of it, but the fact is that the books will sell and make money, and perhaps even more money for publishers, right? Like the market bears it out.
Right.
And that's a good thing.
I just turned in our NEA final report, which I made so many dumb mistakes, the same dumb mistake actually, like so many times. I'm going to share this with everyone, even though it's super embarrassing. We had to do a final report for this grant, and the NEA final reports can be fairly confusing. There's forms that you have to fill out. And one thing I didn't notice is that there's a different final report form for each fiscal year that the grant is from. And so what year is it? It's 2019. So I filled out the form for fiscal year 2019, uploaded it, all that stuff. The woman that receives all these emails and is like, you're using the grant number for your wrong grant. You're using the grant for 2019 instead of 2018. You need to use the 2018 one. It's like, I wonder what I did. And I looked and I thought, I just messed up the number, the grant number. I just screwed up. So I reload it, re-upload it. She's like, no, you do not understand that at the very top, it says this report is for any grant that began in fiscal year 2019, and you're reporting on something from 2018. You have to refill out an entire different thing. It took me so long to figure out like what I had done wrong. I was like, I don't know what year it is. I don't know what I'm doing. But that grant that we just turned in was our women in translation grant. We did our whole project was 6 books by women in translation over a 1-year period to try and address that imbalance too.
Yeah, and who was it? The British publisher that they just
and other stories.
Another story. They just didn't publish any men for an entire year, right?
Yeah, I don't know which books fell into that, to be honest. No. Like,
yeah.
2018 was the year. And they had, it doesn't list it. I was hoping it just listed it. 2018 was the year that they published women. I know they did the Nora Lang book, Anne Quinn, Alicia Cupp's Brother on Ice, Christina Rivera Garza. I'm not sure what else, but I'm not sure which books all ended up in that. But yeah, they did that whole thing for all last year.
The other thing I will say about Women in Translation Month and the sort of movement in general is it is still very much a small press thing. And I don't know how long it's going to take the larger presses to catch on to this. I don't know how much more like the success of Ferrante could be waved in people's faces before they need to, realize that there's a spot here for this sort of stuff on their lists and for supporting this sort of cause. But yeah, so far it's all small presses.
Yeah, that's very true. I will look at that if I can, like some of the big presses and some of the small presses, and just like a cheese taster method of who's doing what.
Oh, you can do that. That's right. Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to do it for every publisher. That would drive me insane. But
yeah,
that's too much. But just like a number of them, just like some of the ones who are doing the most, we'll say, like the top 10 or 20 publishers of translation. How do they break down?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd be curious to see that too.
I can run pretty easily. Infographic. I need someone. I tried to check out this book on creating the best infographics and design. It's like a book on design on like how to do that, but it was missing in the library. I couldn't find it. Like, it's just gone. But so instead we get my shitty Excel charts that I take pictures of and pre-frame for the website. I need to learn how to do something better. I need to be better at what I do, just generally.
That's a whole, like, people study this stuff for years in school.
I know. I'm going to do a different course this fall though on data science, but I would like to learn how to do the infographic stuff. It's a goal. It's a goal for my old age. Every year I'm going to try and acquire something new that I can do as I get older and older and dumber.
All right. What else do you have I have to get going here. So.
All right. I was going to mention Nada was the only other thing. There's a post up. So I had this idea. The post that went up yesterday on Two Spanish Women in Translation has this long idea that I'm really excited about. That if you're a publisher, you're probably going to be hearing from me very shortly, in which I want to read books that are stripped of all markers from 20 different publishers and grade them and review them and think about them they have to be books that are so far out in the future that I wouldn't be able to have read a preview of them or a trade review or heard about them on Twitter necessarily. Things that, and there could be, I want them stripped of title, author, publisher, translator, all information, and just read it straight and see how my rankings end up comparing to like the buzz, and if I'm right, if I can guess right as to whether it's like a book from publisher X or Y or what it is. I want to see what it would be like to read 20 books that are completely just text and no preconceived notions, nothing to influence what I think about the book. Because that's sort of like the problem with the Silvina Ocampo book is like, I didn't know what to write about it because it's like, yeah, it's good. I fucking knew it would be good. Like, she's like a famous author who's really talented, translated by talented translators. Like, I've already made up my mind about this before I read it, but it would be cool to be able to read books and not know what I just want to do it as an experiment. I think I could write an article at the end about it.
Don't you think they would all have to be writers you had never read too?
I don't know. That would be fascinating, wouldn't it? Like, what if I don't recognize someone that I'm say that I'm a big fan of? Like, how much comes through? How good of a reader am I? How close am I paying attention? Do I actually know what I think I know? Or am I just basing shit on like who the publisher is and like who's involved with the project and then sort of building around that?
Which I'm not entirely sure that's wrong.
Nope. But it's there.
But it's there, right?
Yep.
I don't know. When I started reading Nada, like, it had been a while since I'd read Manchette. I mean, Ivory Pearl came out like
last year.
Yeah. And that was such a different thing from all of his other books for, all the reasons we already discussed. But so, one page into Nada, I was like, oh, right, this is Manchette. Like, it immediately felt very, very, very familiar. And same thing with Marias. Like, There are these writers that I just know
Here-
on site immediately.
Yeah. See, here's the thing, though. I wonder. Okay, so I think there's certain ones like that that would probably maybe be evident, but at the same time, I could see reading it and being like, God, this is familiar, but who?
But
And
who,
like,
right?
and is it really this writer? Or is it someone imitating this writer?
Well, that's the other thing, right? Like writing trends, style trends, structural trends, all of these sorts of things definitely add up.
Yeah.
Especially in translations, like it's going to be obvious what country it comes from, probably at a certain point in the book.
I'm gonna guess. I'm putting all these things are things I'm gonna guess. I've created a whole scale and a whole like system of things I'm gonna try and predict, like what country it's from and who the publisher is, and if it's a male or female.
Debut, that sort of thing.
I debut. I'm not gonna. I don't know if I could predict that, but the other ones like you feel like you're like, oh yeah, I could probably figure. I don't think I can. I think I'm just gonna. I think I'm gonna enjoy the books in a much deeper way than I would if I knew who wrote them.
That's interesting. I
Because I
really
think
don't
I'll be
know.
paying more attention.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Like, it's true. I mean, my favorite Javier Marias book is still the first one I read. My favorite Anne Carson book is still the first one I read. You know, like the joy of discovery that you try to recreate, but you've already read them, so it's not quite the same, right?
Yep. It's going to be a fun experiment. So I'm going to be sending out an email about it later, hopefully later today, but probably not because I'm going to have to run and proof for 6 hours. God, you have no idea. I feel like this in 5 days is going to be like just like a insane brain workout. But I'm going to send out a message and try and get this set up. And Anthony's going to be the point person to like make sure everything gets stripped of all details, but keep track of which book is which, so that when I get done, we can unveil and mark everything up and see like what happened or where I was right or wrong or all of that stuff. So hopefully people play along. I think it's a fun experiment.
Yeah, I think it could be interesting. So the only thing I wanted to mention, and this comes on the heels of a month during which in Rhode Island they have this stupid thing called food fights, where where consumers buy these coupons good for a free X thing throughout the month at a bunch of different places that agreed to like give them this free thing. And so this coupon book costs you like $30 or something, and you get like a free whatever, like order of wings or burger or whatever.
Right.
July was we don't have food, obviously. We don't have a kitchen, so we did the iced coffee, even though we're just pouring nitro out of a keg that probably 10 other bars or cafes in Rhode Island use the exact same coffee, and I don't know what distinguishes it, but there was an argument to be made that it was good marketing, that a lot of people are coming in the door that never would have, who might buy other things, books, whatever, pastries, that their friends who weren't carrying the coupons might buy a coffee or that sort of thing. And although it didn't bear out exactly as, like, those things didn't happen quite at the level that it was, like the additional purchases didn't happen at quite the level that I was sort of led to believe.
Yeah.
It happened enough that it wasn't a total wash on like the amount of coffee I gave out. And there were definitely some customers who I think will be back, who I do think, even if our iced coffee doesn't win the voting, because there's another place that always wins. It was worth it from a business point of view to give away whatever it was, a few $100s worth of iced coffee.
Yeah. Yeah.
For the customers that some customers did buy like 3 books at it, like when they came in, and that's huge, right? Anyway, however, the thing I want to complain about, because these people are fucking monsters when it comes to tipping. And I just don't understand why you're getting a free thing, basically free. Like, I did the math on it. These people paid like 50 cents for these iced coffees that are basically worth $4.50, $5, right?
Right.
And not like I don't want to say none of them tipped, but 90% of them did not tip.
Oh my God.
And it's frustrating, not for me as the owner, like the tips that I get are sort of minimal part of my business model, basically, for making money for myself.
Yeah.
But I feel bad for my baristas and centers who have to spend time doing this for customers and delaying serving paying customers and all that sort of stuff and not get tipped.
Yeah, that's weird.
It's so frustrating and this is a common thing in the cafe with coffee sales in general, is that people don't tip as often as they do on cocktail sales or even bar sales. And a lot of people have that mentality where it's, I'll get them next time or whatever. A lot of people just never tip. And I just don't get it, frankly. I find it very frustrating. Tip your fucking barista. They're doing something for you. It's a learned skill.
So what if you get just black coffee?
I mean, for us, that's still an Americano. Like, you're pouring a shot of espresso.
Oh, okay.
Like, the cheapest, the easiest, like, if you're getting a hot tea, like, yeah, I put a tea bag in a cup and poured some hot water over it.
Yeah, because I don't tip people on my, like, $1.50 black coffee straight from a, pot.
I mean, I think that's different. If you're getting a latte, a matcha, like any of these things, like, come on. Anyway, I understand there's a great injustice in the tipping system in the United States and the burden being on the consumers and all those sorts of things and whatever. We are not in a position to change the system by ourselves, and so I can't do it. I also think it would just make every interaction with customers incredibly fucking weird, and I don't want to put that on my bartenders, frankly. It's just, this is the system we have here, people. Tip.
So this is so I noticed this for the first time the other day. I was at this bar, and when I checked out or when I closed out my tab, the thing that they came up with, the receipt, had a suggested tip on it of the different percentages. And I was like, I've never seen that at a bar because I just tip $1 a drink.
Right. But you can also, it should say underneath, enter other amount.
Oh yeah, it did. But it was it was entering the amount, and I entered in what I was going to, and I looked down and I was like, wow, that's weird. That was it was subtle enough to encourage me to be maybe I should be tipping more than $1 a drink. And I was like, no, that's my thing. I think that seems fair.
Yeah, it's weird.
But if you put that on your bills, maybe people would then start to tip. You just subtly introduce it.
Fucking cash, people.
Oh.
Yeah, well, and even and that's already in the system. Our system does exactly what you're talking about.
Okay.
But I still see people who don't tip on coffee drinks, but will tip on bar drinks. But for when I'm giving someone a free coffee, clearly there's no money exchange, right? I'm not swiping their credit card.
Yeah.
They're not giving me a $5 bill and I'm not giving them $1 back. They're just, I'm handing them a thing and they're giving me a coupon and that's it.
Right.
Right. And I understand a lot of people don't have cash or whatever. Maybe if it were me, oh my God, I would carry so much cash around to make sure that I tipped every single person. And I mean, all of that, I can't even fathom walking into a place, taking the free thing and not even tipping the person. Just seems crazy.
Yeah. It's kind of like when you're at a wedding or whatever, and it's an open bar, but there's a tip jar.
Right. It's you gotta tip.
Yeah.
Leave a tip. Absolutely leave a tip.
I wonder how many people how many listeners tune out when we start talking about tipping etiquette versus baseball. What is there? Which is the one that's more offensive? Or more boring?
I would like to believe that all of our customers are on our side in terms of tipping.
all of our listeners are on our side about that for sure.
I would hope. If you are not, please let me know why and what the fuck your argument is against it.
Oh man. Okay, we've run long. I don't have anything else. You can end on your rant there. That seems perfect.
Yeah. So just so you know, and so our listeners know, I mean, not that anyone's waiting with bated breath for the next podcast. I will be on a plane next Tuesday, coming back from a little vacation. So we will not be able to record. Yeah, I get back on the 20th, so we'll have to record on Wednesday morning instead.
Oh, that's no big deal.
Yeah.
No big deal. Okay, sounds good. I will talk to you later.
Together, tied